and be sure to do all the stuff for the algorithm, like and yay and all that stuff. Amazon is a new, different, weird type of store. For hundreds of years, we've had markets where someone makes something, they take it to the market, they sell it, and then you buy it and whatever. And then they pay a few employees. There's a little bit of surplus that's left over at the top, and that is not what Amazon is. Also, it's not like a regular department stores like Kmart. Back in the day, they would buy a whole bunch of stuff from a bunch of different companies, put it on the shelves, then you would come in and buy it. So Kmart was the middleman. Amazon is not that. They are something different entirely, and that's what we're going to talk about in this video, because I don't think a lot of people understand exactly what they are, and they've been trying to categorize it, and now there's a couple different books out that I will reference, and there's also a big anti-monopoly lawsuit. So what we're going to do in this video is talk about my personal experience, because I've sold on Amazon. Then we're going to talk about a couple of different books that are trying to sort of pinpoint what type of an entity Amazon is. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about the lawsuit and give you some information on where you can find out more about that. But first, we're going to talk a little bit about USBC, thanks to our sponsor, Anker. And I'm kind of glad we're talking about this, because Anker, in their email, they were like, can we just not mention the Amazon page? And I'm like, absolutely, we can do that. We'll send people directly to Anker.com. Now, Anker's been making USB-C cables since the beginning. Got some really durable cables that are able to withstand over 10,000 bends. So it's going to be a little more renewable, and there'll be fewer things going to the landfills. And in further consideration of the environment, they do have some bio-based cables with minimal packaging. If that's something that makes your heart happy, then you got it. Now, not all USB-C is the same. A lot of people think it's a standard. Well, the connector is a standard, but the actual protocol of the actual USB-C is not. You can have all kinds of different devices. Works with your Android Auto, it works with iPhone and Android. Another thing to note is not all USB-C can deliver this much power, but these can deliver 240 watts, which is enough to plug up to a laptop and keep that up and running or keep it charged. So head over to the Anker website, the link is in the description, and you can get 20% off using the coupon code ANKERTB. So put that in, check out their Anker Nano series of super fast chargers and just a bunch of their other things like their cables or whatever. If you need stuff, I like going directly to the website instead of going to the Amazon page, because you can get deals like this. It's better for everybody all the way around to go directly to the vendor. And now let's get on with our regularly scheduled program. First, I want to talk about my personal experience with how selling things on Amazon went, and then we'll relate that to what's been going on with Amazon and how they actually function as a company. So when we had our Fennec products, and you can see them over here at Epic Pants. Oh, by the way, 50% off until the end of the month. Even though I'm not going to be in town, I'll ship everything back out on the 1st, but 50% off on all the Fennec gear. I'm not going to sell it too hard because, Anyway, so we wanted to sell this stuff on Amazon. One of the main reasons is I wanted to be able to get it into Amazon UK and some different places around the world. So I sent them a box of keyboards, box of controllers, box of these, box of these, box of these, and some mouse pads, and I even sent them some of these, and we put them for sale on Amazon. So everything was okay, and sales were okay. They did charge a few different fees. Now, I wanted Amazon Prime because that's what everyone uses, so they charge for the storage. So you're getting charged like $40, $50 a month just for storing the items there, but it's okay as long as a few things were selling, you're making your money back. But then you look at how much they're taking per sale. And for us to sell over there, I was selling stuff for a little bit more expensive than I was selling it here, around $40. Now, when I looked at the profit from that, Amazon's cut was $14. And after everything's said and done, I was making probably $9 or $10 on each item. So that's just to let you know, these things cost about $13 from China. And then the shipping on that is like $5 or $6, and storing it and all that. So that's where the prices come from. If I did advertising, it would cost $60, but I don't do any advertising. So anyway, we had them there, and it just felt so weird that Amazon was taking such a big cut. But whatever, we're on Amazon. They're making more money than I'm making, and all I'm doing is using their service as a platform to sell things. But it felt necessary because everyone's on Amazon. They've got the entire populace hooked into Amazon Prime, so everyone thinks shipping is free. Here's $100 so I can have free shipping. I know you're also getting to watch The Expanse or whatever else you're watching on Amazon Prime when you should be probably pirating it, but whatever, you're still getting to watch those Amazon shows. Anyway, that's how it was there. And then at one point they messaged us, and they were just like, hey, we noticed on the bottom of your mice, it doesn't say Portland, Oregon, and we require that. And I was like, that's a new thing. I was like, so can we just put stickers on the box or stickers on the mice that say Portland, Oregon? And they were like, no, you can't do that. So that was weird. And then they didn't want to sell them. And then they said, all right, if you can prove that your mice is legitimate, we will sell them. But we think that your mice are not legit. So that was kind of weird. Like, what does that mean? Like, our mice are not legit? So going back and forth, they said, please give us a receipt for your mice to show from the factory where you got them. So I got the receipt and I sent it to them. And this had been right about 13 months after we put them on the site. And, they were not on the site. They were not for sale. And they were like, okay, this receipt is more than a year old. Sorry. And that was it. And I was like, well, can we have our stuff back? And they said, yes, you can have your mice back. The price to get your mice back is like $240. And I was like, well, that's really high. And they were like, and by the way, we can't ship it out for 60 days. So I have to pay for 2 more months of keeping it on the store shelf, not being able to sell it. And then they're going to make us pay this much. They're like, or you could spend $40 and we will destroy these products for you. And that was my option, to let them destroy the products or to let them keep doing whatever. I canceled the credit card that was on my Amazon account, and that was it. I was like, that's it. They wouldn't let me cancel my account because they're like, no, you have to pay for the monthly storage. And I was like, this is not right. You've got me in a place where I can't just get my stuff back. And I can, but it takes 2 months and it's going to cost a fortune. It's going to cost more than more than the cost of some of the items in those boxes for me. And then my other option is to pay you to destroy them. And I was like, no, do whatever you want. I'm canceling my card. The stuff is there. So the stuff got stranded there and I canceled my card. I never got any of it back. And I know they destroyed some of it, which really kind of made me sad because these are decent products that we made. I've spent a lot of time putting this stuff together, and then Amazon doesn't care. They just destroy it. And there's a reason that Amazon acts like this. They don't make most of their money directly from the customers like a regular business. They make most of their money by exploiting the system on both ends. They exploit the buyers. They're basically just charging the sellers rent for access to all these customers. And so, that seemed really, really wrong. So I just said, screw it. We could make a ton of money on Amazon if we did all the marketing and contacted all the YouTubers and did all that nonsense, but I'm not going to deal with it. And then it turns out that that's what they've been doing all along. And if you follow the Twitter account of Stacy Mitchell, you'll see all the details about what's going on with Amazon's lawsuit. A lot of people in the comments are going to be like, well, why don't you just go sell somewhere else and keep your Amazon stuff too? Well, you can't really do that. You can, but you can't lower your prices any lower than Amazon. So Amazon has to make their $14 on every mouse that we sold. But, if you decided that you wanted to get a better deal with Walmart or someone else, Amazon will block you. Amazon will not allow you to sell your stuff for a lower price on any other website. And there's some internal documents. They also destroyed 2 years worth of internal documents because they're trying to cover a lot of this up because these are not good for the customer. And one of the reasons, a monopoly like this was even allowed in the first place is a lot of idiots argued that, hey, monopolies are good for customers because then everything's in the same spot. And if we have a monopoly, we can afford to give the customers a good deal with good service. And then, of course, Congress and all those idiot, people were like, oh, yeah, great, we should allow this. But now it's gone too far. So there's a couple different books I want to talk about that have tried to really discuss this. And I think it would be better if we made just like a full-on documentary rather than me just talking randomly for a little bit. But, it is what it is. Anyway, first book is Chokepoint Capitalism. And in Chokepoint Capitalism, they talk about how stuff like Amazon and Spotify and other companies that are similar to that have created these choke points in our capitalist society where all of the sellers have to be here because they've trapped all the buyers here. And if you want access to all these buyers that are paying for their Prime and think they're getting a good deal on shipping, if you want access to all those customers, well, you have to pay Amazon or let Amazon take a huge portion of your profits and revenue. This is totally different from the way stuff used to be. Like 30 years ago, you can go to Kmart or Walmart or one of the other big box stores, Best Buy, and you'd be like, hey, here's our product. Can we get on your shelves? And sometimes they say, yeah, you can give us, $50,000 and we'll do like an advertisement on our store thing. They would have all these value added things. But really, if they wanted your product, like if you're a Nintendo or somebody, if you're making a thing, a really cool sponge or whatever, and they want your product on the shelf, they'll buy it. And they'll be like, yes, we'd like to place an order for 100,000 units to ship out to all our stores across the world. And you'd be like, oh, Walmart's buying 100,000 units? And then Walmart would buy that, and it would be their inventory. If the inventory didn't move at all, sometimes they would call and be like, hey, can you buy this back? It's not working. But in general, that's how it worked. And then Walmart would charge a little bit more, and then they would pressure you. And Walmart's not a good company, but this is just how things used to be. They would pressure you, can you give us any lower prices because we want higher margins? but they would be making money by reselling the stuff that you had. They were the middleman to resell the stuff. It's general principles of like wholesale and retail. And you were like wholesaling to them and they were retailing it out to the public. But that's not what Amazon does. Amazon gives the public direct access to the sellers, and they charge the hell out of the sellers for access to the public. And they were only able to get this way by extremely anti-competitive practices to make sure that the competition had worse prices or whatever. They would make sure that they would just go in and lose tons of money selling stuff. And at first, 2015, 2013, 2014, whenever they came out or whatever, people were like, how is this working? Amazon's losing so much money. No, Amazon was trapping the market. They were trapping all the serfs on their land so that they could charge all the merchants for access to all these serfs. So Amazon was creating a kingdom. And that's why I think Chokepoint Capitalism is interesting, because it talks about monopsonies, which is just what I've explained, where they create a choke point in the middle and they've got all the customers over here. And then if you're a seller, you have to use them if you want to actually get big and actually, get your stuff to the public. You have to use them. And that's what a monopsony is. It's where there's one place where the sellers can go. Kind of like Spotify, it's becoming a monopsony. I mean, there's obviously options, smaller options, but nothing on the scale of Spotify, where if you're an artist and you want people to listen to your stuff, you really have to be on Spotify. And that's why I'm on Spotify. It's terrible when it comes to money. It's terrible when it comes to listening habits, but I still want people to discover my stuff, so I put it on to Spotify. There's really no other choice. I could go online and yell and scream and I would have a small audience, but you need access to the bigger audience, and you have to be on these things. And that's what a monopsony is. You could look it up if you're curious, but I do recommend checking out Chokepoint Capitalism if you're interested. It goes into deep details about the systems that Amazon uses, the systems that things like Spotify use, how they work, and the ways that they implement them to change our entire society. And a lot of times these systems are training you to trust them. And that's where we get into this book, which I think goes a little bit deeper. I'm not going to say this is better, but I think it is a better conclusion of what the final product is. Like this one, we're in a system of chokepoint capitalism. This one says we're no longer in a capitalist system. We're in a system of technofeudalism. And I think that's closer to what we have now, because capitalism is, funnily enough, a much more wholesome thing when compared to technofeudalism, because in capitalism you make a good, you sell it, you get your money, whatever. There's actually a market, and if you look at a lot of the old school companies like GMC and stuff, just any of those old school companies that made stuff, they would make stuff, and then about 80% of their revenue went back into the employees, R&D, and whatever else, and then 20% maybe went to the top. But when you have companies like Amazon and Spotify, it's like 90% of that chunk is just going to the top, and a lot of that value is generated out of thin air through rent-seeking activities. So rent-seeking used to be a derogatory term used by financial experts way back in the day, like hundreds of years ago, 150 years ago or so. And rent-seeking meant that you were trying to get money for nothing. So that's where the term rent is. It came from that. But before, let's say you have, you're selling, toys that you make for kids. And the cost of the materials, the labor, the store, and the employees is, a certain price. And you have all that figured into the price of your toys. And then on top of that, you can make, 20-30% back as profit. That's after all those other things are taken care of. You've got 20-30% for you as the toy creator, as the mind behind these toys. You've paid your employees, you paid for all your stuff. And let's say you're like, this is cool, but I think I'm going to charge an extra 50% on top of all that, because I think people will just pay it maybe, and I'm greedy and I want that money. And people will look at that and be like, yeah, you've got a reasonable margin already, but you're going to charge this much more. You're just rent seeking. You're just seeking money for nothing. That's how the entire economy is structured now. Companies seeking money for nothing, just raising their price. You want to talk about inflation, where it really comes from? Yeah, we've printed a lot of money, and those companies have raised prices on a ridiculous amount. Even when you take into account how much inflation we have, they've gone far above that. Just the greed is out of control. They're rent seeking. They're like, hey, economy's bad right now. People are going to, instead of blaming us for raising the price of eggs, they're going to look at the economy and say, it was the mean old government for printing all that money. It was the dumb libs for doing this. It was the Republicans for driving trucks. I don't know what they're going to blame them for. But everyone's going to blame everybody else. It was the minorities for doing whatever they're doing. Anyway, a little snippet into what rent seeking is and where the term rent came from as an aside. Back to Technofeudalism. So Yanis Varoufakis, if you want to get the audiobook, he does read this himself. He talks about Technofeudalism and how Amazon has created a new type of economy where they are the digital lords of the land. And if you look at their income, it makes a lot of sense because they get most of their money from renting things. They've got server infrastructure like Amazon S3. They mine all kinds of data on you, which they also sell. So you are part of their product. When you put an Alexa in the home, it's training you to trust it while you train it to know your needs better. So it's like this back and forth training thing that's going on there with Alexa, and you're like, oh, this thing really knows me. And the same thing goes for a lot of these other, helper bots that Google has. And we can get into Google's evil in another video, but a lot of these bots are training you to train them, to train you to train them better so that you can trust it. And then share all your stuff so that they can monetize that, because that's where a lot of the money comes from. It's just monetizing our personal, private data, and that's something that Amazon is very good at. They make more money on that, selling the web services, and extracting fees from people who use their platform to sell. They make more money on that than they do actually selling things. A lot of people used to be worried about Amazon Basics and how oh no, they're looking at items that other sellers sell and they're creating their own cheaper versions. That's barely even a thing. They do that here and there, but they don't care about that. They'd rather make money from the actual sellers. They'd rather make money by charging them so that they can get money for nothing. Amazon doesn't want to do all that stuff. They don't want to make all this stuff. They do because there's a little bit of money in it, but ultimately their end goal is to just sit back, have everyone on their platform be the digital lord of the land, and have all their serfs, which are all the people on Prime, just praising them because, oh, everything's so easy. My little drone delivered my stuff earlier. It was great. And then all the sellers being like, oh, we have to use them. We have no other choice. We have to do business on their digital land. We have to use their platform. We have to use S3. We have to use their web servers. We have to use their platform to sell and reach the customers. So when you look at it from that, lens, it really starts to become apparent what they are. And it's not a traditional capitalist entity. It's not a traditional store. Yeah, I'm going to leave it with that. I want you to go ahead and read. If I've piqued your interest on any of these things, please go pick them up. If you're only going to read one, this is the one to read, but I think you should read both. Even though this one doesn't get as deep, but this one goes deeper when it comes to a lot of the methodology that different companies use, and it's not just about Amazon. Whereas this one focuses more on Amazon and the Google and the big companies like that. But they're both very well written and interesting books. And I'm curious to know what you think about all these. If your take is just libs or commies or whatever, I don't care. You're not going to contribute to the conversation. I want to know what you think about those ideas that are laid out in those books. So, or if you're some person who's going to jump in there and talk about free markets and stuff, please, you need to understand that the rich are getting socialism all day long. And even companies like Amazon started with big grants from the government and loans, and they also used public data because the people who started these companies started, and once they get all this public benefit, they're like, cool, is mine now. We'll lock down. Thanks. I think a lot of people give companies like Google and Amazon a lot of stuff in the beginning because they're like, oh, cool idea. And they don't realize how greedy and sociopathic they are. I don't use Prime anymore. I do ship out a lot of the stuff from Finnick in Prime boxes because I have a way to get Prime boxes and they're all over the place, and I recycle those. So you may see some of your Finnick products that you order from the store on our 50% sale coming in an Amazon box or a different box. I bought some stuff from Newegg. Someone's going to get a Newegg box. Someone's going to get a box of coffee that smells like delicious coffee because I ordered the coffee. But yeah, I do recycle boxes. That's pretty much it. I've ranted long enough. I would be willing to work with someone on a full-on documentary on this stuff if I have time, but I would like to see a documentary come out that kind of gets to the bottom of this. The lawsuit that's happening right now does not even get this deep. It gets a lot of the stuff that's going on, but I think they need to read Technofeudalism. You know, I'm not saying that we're in a techno-feudalist society, but it ain't regular capitalism anymore. All right, thanks for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments. So I'll see you in the comments.